Hi, I'm Erin Duffy. I started the Tennessee Library Ecosystem Coalition, which was the branch of this larger ecosystem work with ALA for Tennessee. Uh, that coalition we really begun our work in earnest back in spring of 2021. And we've kind of had to work backwards, where we started with some urgent advocacy efforts. And then more recently, we really started to formalize our work and figure out a plan going forward. So let me talk to you about what happened. So almost immediately after our group was formed and started figuring out, how we were going to work, there was a bill in the Tennessee legislature that would have banned any LGBT content in school libraries and classrooms. Obviously, this is a very big censorship issue. This was kind of the first wave of this larger sea of censorship that we're seeing, at least in Tennessee. And so we wanted to come out pretty quickly and with a strong voice against this. So a position statement was drafted saying this is why we oppose it. It goes against professional values of librarianship. It goes against the First Amendment Bill of Rights. And we oppose this. And we took that document and sent it to the executive boards of the Tennessee Library Association, the Tennessee Association of School Librarians, and the Tennessee Friends Association, which is very active, and asked them if they would, as the executive boards, approve to sign off on this position statement so that we could get it out there. And they all did. And we then took this position statement and sent it to every email that we could find associated with anyone on the committee that was hearing this bill before it went to the floor. We sent it to local newspapers, sent it to all the library listservs to let the librarians know this was going on and where our stance was. And we, of course, blasted it across social media as much as we could. The bill, we never got a response from any of the emails that we sent to the committee members, but the bill did not leave committee. It never made it to the floor. There is a chance this bill would come up again, but the fact that it was not voted affirmative in the committee at that time was a win. So we were very happy about that. At the same time, we were trying to address another issue. There once was a school library coordinator in Tennessee within the Department of Education. When that person left the role, I think 20 years ago, the role was just never filled again. And because of bureaucratic reasons, in order to staff that position again, it has to go through the legislature and be approved. And then it becomes a budget item in the state budget for the Department of Ed. We were working on drafting a position statement that we would then again have all of the executive boards vote on and then distribute in the same way. But our window was too short and we weren't able to get it signed and sent out before the vote happened. And that bill was voted down or did not have enough votes to be affirmed. And so it will be addressed again next year during the legislative session. So that was kind of our second effort that was happening at the same time. And then over the summer, things kind of lay dormant for a little bit until the fall, when the censorship issue really started kicking up. We had a school board member in Chattanooga who posted an op-ed in the local paper for Chattanooga talking about the vile books in the library and quoting The Hate U Give and some other heavy hitters for folks who want to censor books, and just talking about how they were just abysmal and vile. And so it was brought to our attention through the Tennessee Library Association's OIF. And so again, we worked together to draft a position statement. And this was actually really cool. We had more than a dozen people on a Google document and a Zoom call, and we are editing this together in real time to draft this really strong position statement that really shares how we feel collectively as librarians in Tennessee. There was a lot of representation. We had members from each of the different library organizations on that call and in that editing process. And then we got that signed by the executive boards, and again, kind of blasted it out. We sent it to the newspaper that posted the original op-ed. We sent it to the Tennessean, which is the largest newspaper in Tennessee. We sent it to the woman who originally posted the op-ed, sent it to the email addresses for each of the school board members on that board. And it got published. Our response was published in the Tennessean in an article that kind of explained what was happening and then shared our response. It was picked up by ALA's Office of Information Freedom and put in their blog, where then it was picked up and discussed in Library Journal, the publication. And we worked very quickly. All this is done within a week span because there was a school board meeting coming up, and we wanted to make sure that our position was known and that we were represented in that school board meeting. Some of the people who worked on that document did attend the school board meeting and said that it was kind of subdued. There was support, community support for our position, and then there wasn't a lot of pushback and urgency in continuing that censorship. So it was a positive outcome, and it set that precedent of saying, as librarians in Tennessee, we are not going to sit by and let censorship happen in our schools and libraries. We're going to stand up, and we're going to stand up together and strongly. And we were able to do that through the work that was starting to coalesce around the guidelines in the ecosystem toolkit. We leaned on that toolkit to figure out who to bring into the conversation, how to have those conversations, and what to do, what that advocacy, that one voice advocacy really looks like, and how it can be effective and useful. And it worked. We were able to get our position out there and show that we represent Tennessee librarians and Tennessee school librarians together, and this is where we stand. And there's a lot of us, so don't discount how we feel about this. And so it was really encouraging. So once that happened and we had put out the fires, the immediate fires that we needed to deal with, and we have this position statement now against any future censorship issues that we can, recall back our statement. We had a meeting in November to really think about the forming this group and making it something that is sustainable and has leadership and has a process that we're going to use. And we met, we spent a half day going through the section of the toolkit talking about leadership and figuring out what we need our organization to look like. We had a long discussion about how this is not a separate advocacy effort. This is a bridge for all of the other advocacy efforts being done by the library orgs in Tennessee, so that we're communicating together. We're creating this one advocacy agenda that we're all speaking from, and we're supporting each other's advocacy needs. We're supporting the school librarians who are asking for a library coordinator. We're supporting the public librarians when they need more funding. And so on that day, we used the advocacy checklist tool to figure out, what each group's advocacy needs are, and then pull them together and create an advocacy agenda for the year. And then we looked at the advocacy calendar tool that's in the toolkit and utilized that to figure out, okay, legislative session starts here. We need to make sure we have our key contacts. We need to, and it kind of lays out what needs to be done in each month to have a year of strong advocacy efforts. We also use that time to look at sustainability of our work and how positions would be rotated through, and what our leadership hierarchy would look like. And it's pretty simple. It's very straightforward. And it's the big thing that we realize is we need to designate liaisons to each of the library orgs in Tennessee, so that those liaisons are bringing information back to this group that we know, okay, these are the needs and the efforts going on. And then together we can send that information back out to all the other groups so that we're all working together. We are to act as a hub for these advocacy efforts, not to create our own advocacy efforts that we then send out to the groups and say, this is what you're advocating for. We are a hub to say, this group needs this and this needs this. And then we create that combined advocacy agenda that is then shared with the groups by the liaisons, so that we're all speaking strongly together. So it was a wonderful day, and a lot of work was done. And it was also my last day participating with the Tennessee Library Advocacy, because I've since moved out of state. Zan Lasko is now leading the group as they continue to kind of solidify their plan and their efforts, and continue to fight for freedom of information and budgets and school librarians and all the things that librarians advocate for in Tennessee. I'm excited to see where the efforts go. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's just a wonderful team of people that are still leading the charge in Tennessee, using this ecosystem toolkit to guide them and help them really strengthen their advocacy efforts.